Cochran, considered perhaps the greatest strength and conditioning coach in modern college football history. You've heard his story about leaving Alabama to go to Georgia. Scott, you mentioned getting out of rehab and going back, and I know the answer is you never know, but I'll try to have you communicate to people who are dealing with this today. How do you know what's going on? Because it's a daily battle. We know that, but what makes you, or do you really ever know as you're trying to walk your way through life?
No, I don't. I don't think you ever really know. I think it is definitely a daily battle. Sometimes it's a minute by minute battle, an hour by hour battle. And the goal is just to stay in the day. Uh, you know, we use the term higher power, in a lot of the rooms, but reality is you got to use God in a certain way. You got to be able to talk to him to help you get through the moment, because it's just a moment and the moment passes. Uh, and having a support system, a network around you that you can call and say, hey, well, look, when I was a head strength coach, there weren't a lot of people telling me, hey, you're wrong for this or you're wrong for that. I made decisions based on the head coach telling me this is how we want it done. Um, and then in recovery, it's the same thing. Sometimes you make decisions and it's like, wait, I need some people to help me get through this. And having that network is huge.
If I could go back, because we used to joke about you behind your back. I mean, what is this guy on? Because I mean, you were, I mean, we, and I mean, I haven't seen every strength and conditioning coach in the country, but I've never seen one like you. And the results are pretty obvious, and there are those, including myself, who have wondered about Alabama's program since the moment you left there. But what made you communicate so well to those young men, because you got things out of them that they've told us that they couldn't get on their own.
Yeah, when I speak to teams and groups, it's very simple to me. Is you get on their level, you talk to them and find out more about them, and kind of forget the overall mission, right? Because every player I've coached, they want to play in the NFL, they want to be the first pick in the draft, they want to win a national championship, right? But if you get on their level and you have a real conversation and say, hey, how are you doing handling all the exterior? How's mama doing? And you have an uncle or a dad telling you you're not getting enough playing time? Like, let's call them. Let's have a conversation. I think it takes time. You have to build a relationship with them and see them on their level, and then all of a sudden, whatever you put in front of them, it gets knocked down.
How would you describe the relationship you? We'll get to Georgia after the question, but because I mean, nobody really knows what a relationship is like with Nick Saban, but you had one with him that was really spectacularly special. How did that develop, and how did you get what he wanted you to get out of these players?
Um, yeah, it's interesting you asked that. First off, like your expectations of yourself have to be higher than your bosses, right? I think that is the key to success in any organization. So whenever there was a problem, whenever there was an issue, I should have already known about it, right? I should have already gotten in front. And so when he would get to the problem where I would have to go tell him the problem, which was never fun, I had already handled it on the front end. And that just took time. At first, sure, I was, running around like a chicken with my head chopped off being so young, but I was also, I came from a system before that. My high school time at John Curtis in New Orleans, we won a lot. So I kind of knew the formula of what a championship team looked like. And so I think I fit right where he needed me to. And if I didn't, he was gonna help me find that.
What did I'm curious because you mentioned your friendship with Kirby Smart, and talk about a fiery guy. I know what he's like as a head coach, but he was no shrinking violet as an assistant under Nick Saban either, was he?
No, not at all. And I was his get back coach every game. Every game I had to pull him back. As a matter of fact, the last year I told him, I said, I'm done. I'm done getting you back. If you don't have the discipline we're asking the players to have to stay behind the freaking line, I'm not pulling you back ever again.
I'm assuming he's calmer as a head coach.
No, not at all. If anything, the other way around.
That's hard for me to believe. We're talking to Scott Cochran. Scott, there are a lot of questions I could ask you about that, but I know that your intent is to help people, and I want to
Yes.
go back to that before we wrap up here. When people come up to you, and I know they do, and they're going to continue to after this conversation and many others, how do you relate to them? Because I'm sure we'll get a million calls as soon as you go off the air about people dealing with everyday issues, and I know there's no simple solution, but please talk to those out there who are watching and listening who are hurting right now.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you're not alone. There's, I mean, if you look at the numbers, right, there are 29 million Americans that are in recovery right now. There's 46 million in active addiction right now. And I just want you to know, number one, you're not alone. And you don't have to have this shame and this fear of what people are going to think if they find out that you're struggling. Everybody's struggling with something, right? And if yours is a substance, man, come hunt us down at eliminatethewhisper.com. You know, we can set up some things for you. We're going to be doing stuff with legislation, right? We're going to be doing stuff with policies. We're going to get into businesses, and we're going to teach people how to manage someone in recovery, because we're full of them, and you know there's an army behind us, and you're not alone. And the family members, wow, that's why this our organization is so great, because it's not just the survivors, it's also a mom who lost her son to addiction, another wife who has a husband in addiction, you know, so the family side is so crucial. uh, and just know that as a family member, you're part of it too. Like, you're a huge part of it, and you don't have to fight by yourself. My wife fought in 2020 through that whole season by herself, and it was a nightmare. I cannot imagine. My wife is a superstar. I mean, a superstar for dealing with that and sticking with me. But recovery is real. And it's exciting. This is an exciting time because I've said it yesterday in the press conference. You know, this is the fourth quarter of this epidemic, and we're going to make a stance, and we're going to stand tall. We're not going to crouch anymore. We're not going to whisper anymore. We're going to bring it. So
Help all of us, Scott, get to the point that you had to get to when you don't want to admit it, but you have to. Because I mean, none of us really want to tell our loved ones bad news. How were you able to do it?
I mean, mine was pretty evident when my wife found me overdosed. But even after that, we thought it was all okay. It was all good. Um, you know, my big piece of advice is, before you pick up the phone and tell somebody. You don't have to necessarily tell your spouse. They know. I promise you, your family members know something is off. Something isn't right. They just don't know if you're capable of hearing the truth. Uh, and if you're capable of just being honest, God, there's so much freedom. I mean, the amount of freedom I have today, like, I don't have to yell and scream on the sideline anymore, but the amount of freedom I have to just be me, you know, and I don't have to be anything else. And I don't need a substance to make me feel a certain type of way and be a certain type of way. So you're not alone.
In terms of your future, and I know this is your passion right now, but do you see a day that you get back on the sideline?
I Right now I don't. This has been a miracle after miracle happening in my life, and I just want to share it with the whole world. You know, this is the number one cause of death in the U.S., ages 18 to 45. It's the number one cause. Uh, and I'd love, I mean, shoot, tonight on CNN, we have the presidential debate. I'd love to hear what they have to say about all of these lives being lost. I mean, 107,000 deaths from overdose last year. That's average of 200 people a day. That's like an airplane, a 737 crashing every single day, and nothing's being done. And now it's time to step up, and I'm excited to be a part of that. So when it comes to coaching, I know I'm going to be coaching people through recovery, so that'll be a different type of coaching. But right now, this is really my passion.
Well, whoever gets you will get a great coach, but it would scare me to know that you were coaching me through anything, having watched your career. And I don't want to lose sight of that because you're doing incredible stuff. And I know this is probably far more important to you, but no one should ever forget what you accomplished.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And thank you for coming on, Scott, and all the very, very best.
Thank you so much.
Scott Cochran joining us with an incredibly important message. We'll take a short break, get your reaction after this.